Mike Gill and Qrash back.
Hello, we are back and weird things are happening.
We're back with simple truths.
Yes.
So, in other words, what you're hearing in the media, and it's so hard to understand what's going on, even the tariffs. What does that mean? And how we've got Musk saying after he finds $1 trillion, he's off the ship. We could have gave him the Pandora Papers, dropped $1 trillion in New Hampshire, and got the other money back. So it doesn't look like we're going to be getting that money back either.
Did you see he just talked about Congress today?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, audit the Senate, audit Congress, or it's all bullshit. Simple truths. Is it cost efficient? Yes, it is. Has the Senate given you reason to think they can't be trusted? Well, I don't know. How is it they got wealthy? And we just threw Menendez in prison, sentenced him for 11 years. It took what? Working with Egypt. Listen, they've earned that investigation and that audit. But again, let's get this straight. All we've been getting is photo ops, promises. How many times are you going to see Patel face again? We're on this, we're on this. I go, shut up and arrest somebody.
Yeah.
Do
A lot of
something.
people are talking about Pam Bondi just showing up on Fox News talking. I said, well, we got to watch their actions, not what they say. So,
Pam Bondi, right? They were supposed to get us the Epstein files. You got them? JFK, you got those? How
yeah.
about Jack Smith, 77 witness list? You got those? You don't have anything. And there is the art of the war here. The art of war. Here it is, blackmail and extortion. If you use it, you no longer have it. So let's deal with simple truths. Just a couple. We don't have to have more. What you have to do, we have a wide sweeping battle. We've got the IRS here, and we've got the Department of Justice, we got the FBI, we got cartel. Well, how do you win? You got to focus and a plan of attack. You've got to pierce the outer shell and find what protects this corruption, which is the DOJ. So the path I'm giving you is the direct path of winning this war against a corrupt government that is completely controlled from state and federal, our courts, licensing, business licensing, the media. We got to get it through our heads. We have been sold out. Turns out 99% of the wealth of this world was enough to do the job. And we got cartels and human trafficking moving into that 99% of the wealth, and they're part of the crew. And that dark money is the money that these politicians and these law enforcement crave more than all because it lacks tracing ability. And that's it. What we do is we've got to trace them. So simple truths. So let's build our pillars of truth on our operation of moving forwards. We can open up the DOJ, pushing Flynn into the DOJ, finding out it was their plan of insurrection. That was an attack on the American people. Do you know why they released everybody? Because it was a setup. Even Trump had to agree to let you guys go. You get it? But it was always the DOJ, and Flynn was that instrument. Now, let's go to those simple truths. Okay, Qrash, bring them to December 18th, 2020, from the Oval Office as Patrick Burns, General Flynn, and Sidney Powell. I'll use Patrick Burns' words. They hunchoed their way in to
No,
the
no,
Oval Office.
they ninja'd their way in.
Oh,
They were
ninja, my
ninja.
bad.
Yeah.
What he meant to say was sneaky bastards.
Yeah.
But here's something, ready? You got in there because the DOJ opened the door for you to get in there. What was Powell having? The insurrection lawsuit. Where did she come from? Where did Flynn come from? Patrick Burns, weeks before that, Lynn Woods Farm in South Carolina, where they put the case together, where months before it was Flynn and his band of weirdos going around the country creating the election fraud. That's Tina Peters, who's now saying Lindell's lying. They cheated
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
That could get very interesting.
Interesting. Yep. That's what I said.
And then it was the corruption in Arizona we're going to hear a little later. But that evidence also went to President Trump on that December 18th. They were giving him false evidence, false information, working for the DOJ to set up Trump. Then they set up the whole Magnum movement by J6. I was a witness to that from December 18th, every single day to the day after J6, meaning J7th. And J7th, what did we find out? That the Flynn team had the scatter, and that no one could reach Flynn. That's right, boys and girls. They were off like a prom dress right after the crimes. So this is a fact that General Flynn reached out to me from the Oval Office. Okay, hit it, Qrash. Now, what did General Flynn ask for besides my affidavit and 3 weeks of evidence that is the Pandora's box? Now, he asked for an affidavit, but the settlement, the $50 million settlement, which I've tried to tell you for these years that was the laundering network of the deep state, which is also why they wanted to pay me $50 million to shut up. And then what did we show you in the horse racing, a deposition where Penn National and Liberty again wanted to pay me another $50 million. And shortly after that, it was the cartel that tried to murder me. And again, that reached to the Ukraine, which is part of the laundering network. Now, ready, boys and girls? How did Flynn get my number? How did Flynn know I had the settlement? Now, he'll go back to O'Keefe, so I know he knows that, but it was DOJ that sent O'Keefe and Day. It's the DOJ that sent him. Proof? Hit it, Qrash. Now we've got the DOJ saying that they took from me by hand that $50 million settlement, the same one that General Flynn wanted. And guess what? Why? Because the DOJ knew I had the cartel. I had the laundering network. If President Trump had that, he could leverage them with their money. That is what the Pandora box was. That is what's on that list. That is what the DOJ gave to the Attorney General of the United States, Sessions and Barr. This is what they kept to the president. This is what they didn't want you to see. You have that blow up cut, Qrash. So make sure you see this. So how did Flynn knew? There it is, the $50 million. Who told them? The DOJ. Who took the videographer? Who had the one person that had my number? That same FBI. Okay, Qrash. So you see? Now this is absolute evidence. Now think about this. The Pandora's box is what Flynn and the DOJ requested. Why they requested it on December 18th? That was the day their plan was going to be put in motion. Imagine if Trump signed that, he would not be president today. Who would have been at fault if it would have been Flynn and Powell? Okay? So you have to understand, and you have to know this, or you have to believe President Trump's a screaming moron if he doesn't know that Flynn was part in the head of this insurrection. Now, that 77 witnesses, he would know that Flynn and Powell was on there. He knew it was Jack Smith going after him. Who dropped the case? Jack Smith.
And when I'm sorry, when you're saying the 77 witnesses, people might not realize Jack Smith was supposed to release that before he left.
Yes.
So, explain that so people,
They were going to be key witnesses in prosecuting President Trump. It was going to be the immunity deals with Powell and Flynn, right? That was even Jack Smith saying, President Trump, I have your lawyer on December 18th. I own her. That's Powell.
And we never got that list. Again,
they never released the list, and they changed the plan. Trump wins the election, survives this, survives the brokered convention, which we're going to talk about, survived an assassination, survived the courts. And then that survived Jack Smith. But a deal was made, and this is what we're seeing. And we're going to base it all on simple truths. So, out of 330 million Americans, you've got to ask yourself, why did Flynn reach out to me there at that time, at that moment, at that place, and every day since? And you're going to find that this Mike Grundell, Planet Fitness, was my key witness in money laundering, drug cartels of Anagos. I shared with that evidence with Flynn's team then, because in case something happened to me, that investigation would continue and be a door into the cartel. So nobody's off the hook, and we're all into the story now. Ready? Now, that's part one. So part one is the absolute truth. You can't explain that, and they won't. And I have emails and text messages thereafter. Okay. So what's the other certainty? The other certainty is Arizona. And I said this to Qrash, I think it was either today or the other day, and I said, if there's divine intervention in any of this, it's me flying to Arizona to meet with Tuckeroni and Liz Harris against the Sinaloa cartel and going after these politicians. But then it was the thought and the look on my boy, Chris Sununu. Could you hit doing the laundry? I believe that's next, right?
Yep.
Now, doing the laundry was I confront Sununu. This is the changing of the guards between Clinton and the Bushes. Okay? This is the laundering network of the deep state. This is where $1 trillion went to after this, into this same laundering network, protected by the same banking commissioner that got nominated that day. But that's Sununu. I said, you know something? He latched on to Nikki Haley. And then I said, military industrial complex. There's the move. Our boy's thinking he's going to be the VP behind Haley. Now, how's he going to do that? And then, as I'm flying across the country to my potential death, I believe now. hey,
Yeah.
Sinaloa cartel, here I am. Matthew Sexaroni here. Here's a videotape. He's here. Yeah, the little bastard running around with a gun and threats.
That was Matthew.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is some crazy stuff. But right, I go, how's that broken convention? I need to talk Liz Harris. I need to put that together. Oh, Shelby Bush working it. Boom. All right, hit the next one, Qrash. So in other words, I'm putting this meeting together, seeing that it was that the way in for Sununu and Haley is through a broken convention. I mentioned broken convention to these players, and everybody shit themselves. No one said no. No one said it didn't exist. And the meeting was the next day. I'm going, what the hell did we walk into? Well, I can tell you who took us there. Michelle Moore with Matthew on. And Matthew, there he is connected to Flynn. Can you take him down? I can only take so much of it.
I was just going to say, can I take that?
Holy shit.
Those two.
And there's pictures I didn't give you
I know.
for good reasons. But see, Michelle Moore, who she have on? Nick Elvire wanted to do a movie. John Thaler, the lawyer for Liz Harris, just before Matthew. And then Matthew. It was a setup to get my ass to Arizona. How do you like this? Matthew and Elvire, the girls know each other. Right. You're working with the same people, the sovereign thing, the Mickey Klein, get my ass down there with the thing with a movie. Listen, the idea is, here's the problem, boys and girls. Ready? I keep telling you the truth. Flynn's going to look like a hero out of this, and I keep screwing it up. So we're at a time in a moment where they can't move forwards and leave us behind. I want you to know what they're leaving behind. Their intention was to murder me in Arizona. And all of a sudden, Michelle finds 5,000. I go down there. Matthew, right? Sedona. All right, hit it, Qrash. Let's keep going. And then all of a sudden, I meet her investigator, who's Sedona. This Scott McMahon, boom, he shows up. Right. In fact, there he is there. You know what we find out, Scott McMahon, when I'm saying about this meeting? And that I heard Shelby Bush saying about 98% CIA. That General Flynn had her set up this brokered convention, and she was afraid that she was going to take the heat. And I said it to her, "Are you afraid you're going to get blamed for this?" 100%. They went in, Harris and Bush, when talked about Stacy Burke and
Is that,
about
I'm sorry, Mike, is that conversation, did you say that is on the recording? That we can,
yes,
yeah,
1,000,000%.
yeah, okay.
Stacy Burke was talked about on Michelle's show, but I never put it together.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean Stacy Burke. So I was talking about when you said Shelby said that she's afraid of being thrown under the bus. That's on the meeting as well, or on the recording as well.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
As clear as the bell and verbatim. Okay. Verbatim. So that's why I was there. They thought Trump sent me. There was nothing from Michelle or anything that said a brokered convention. So that took them all off guard. But this pinhead, McMahon, whose deep throat is Stacy Burke, the woman who had the evidence. She's not giving you the evidence. She's not telling you what she had. She's suing Flynn. And this guy McMahon's got to be blackmailing them too, and they're working together. Now, is Flynn guilty? Guilty as hell. Now, what did McMahon here say? Haley and General Flynn? Hailing General Flynn, my ass. You see those two people together? He's right about the military industrial complex, but it's the new. Why did he shoot this down? Because it was blackmail. But okay, you can hit that, Qrash. But what you have to understand is they were trying to take him out. You need to hear that brokered convention from Flynn himself. It was involved in that.
Now, I just want to add something with Scott. He's gonna say, I covered this. He did put something out that was talking about a meeting that Shelby had, which was public. Okay. Yeah. And he's trying to tell everybody that that's what you're kind of referring to, or not really what you're referring to, but he's trying to cover your meeting up with what he had.
Let's put it this way. He's in Michigan. I was in Arizona. The meeting was the meeting I arranged with those people. I'm talking about that one, the one that Liz Harris taped, Shelby Bush. And you know something? The one that he's afraid we're going to blow up the blackmail. We're going to blow up the lawsuit. This was bullshit. It was bullshit again. All right, hit it, Qrash. Let's keep on looking at Bush. But that's what that was. So
here's your buddy.
Right. I mean, so when he's saying it's Flynn, it's a lie. That's who it is. All right, hit it. But that's who the face that I seen. That was who behind Haley. That was the motive. And it was also the industrial complex, military complex. But again, it was Flynn who spearheading another insurrection, another plot. What was this? Right at the meeting? Right after the meeting that I had, days after, President Trump comes up and says the Arizona delegates with the brokered convention. No, that didn't come up before anybody else. It came up after that meeting, and then I made a point and I documented it. And you know what Michelle was getting on her podcast during that time and in July? Like 335,000 views on one particular one, but it was based on this. Which is why it had to be shut down. Okay, hit it, Qrash. So in other words, we knew what happened. And then we know that President Trump, days after, they tried to assassinate him. Okay? So listen, as they're trying to assassinate Trump, the night of the meeting, I have Matthew Tuckeroni, now that he admitted it, tape this note to my door. So all of a sudden, I was there about the cartel and showing them how to track all these stuff down, money laundering. Now, after the meeting, I'm being threatened about having to leave by Matthew. All right, hit it. And we reported it to the cops. We have a case number. And he's been on after that threatening to murder me in text messages. Now they have that. So this is that case number. And again, a few 100,000 people have seen it. Okay, Qrash. So that was after 5 hours. Again, it was something everybody knew. That thing with the meeting, you know what happened after that, too? At two different occasions, two different hotels, I had the CIA come and meet me. This one that was prepped by Michelle Moore to the T, from horse racing to the Holy Spirit. It was the CIA. They had to know how I knew. Did Trump send me? So I beat them all. And I beat them all, and I saw Sununu and how to do that. But now, that evidence with Flynn is insurrection evidence, as my evidence on those text messages was the beginning of that insurrection. How can they investigate J6 and the insurrection and not see all of that? All right, hit it, Qrash. Now, sending me to Arizona and telling the cartel I'm there, that was how they were going to murder me. The thing that saved my life was that brokered convention. Do you want to know if it happened? No, I necessarily can't read that there. But this is Liz Harris and Matthew. She's saying that she does have the tape, and she's never going to play it. This is Tuckeroni covering his ass. But she's never denied have it. And I have series of those conversations between us and text messages that say that. You see? So it does exist, and those witnesses exist. Okay, hit it, Qrash. So in other words, there's evidence. Now, here's something else. Now, who did I say coordinated this? Who sent the money? Who sent me to Arizona? Michelle Moore. Now, what happened in the convention? They were all smiles, and they all put these shit on their ears, right? All in solidarity, right? Where they all tried to broker a convention to tax him his ass out of there. Frauds. Is that the text message, Michelle Moore? Now, Michelle talks to Matthew. Matthew turned around and saying, hey, you know what? I had to tell Shelby Bush that Harris gave me that information. So I had to flip on Harris. So Michelle's basically saying, I remember this as much, is that, hey, listen, you think that was a good thing flipping on Harris? Which is the point. Because, listen, they flipped on each other, which is why they all have recordings. But here it is. This is Matthew. This is Michelle. You can take it down, Michelle. This is her getting me to Arizona. This is the solution to General Flynn's. General Flynn's solution is, I've got to use the cartel. I've got to go after the child trafficking. I've got to go after this. In fact, I sent my boy Ariel. We're going to get into that and blow this up with Planet Fitness in there. I just need to flip and turn Gill. And these last couple of years, they told you I was a hero. They told you I was the #1 whistleblower. Did they not try to turn me? Just as they always did with money and my condition and my situation. And I never turned once. I'm held to the truth, and you're hearing it one time, here and now. That's what it is. So did Trump make a deal? You damn tootin'. Made a deal with the DOJ. And you still have a Flynn around? Now, he won't give him a job. They ain't swapping spit. But he'll pat him on the ass. Hey, here's a ceremonial job. Hey, and we'll announce it at the DOJ. You're a good guy.
I have a question about Thaler. Where does he fit in?
Thaler?
Yeah.
Thaler was the lawyer working with Harris against the cartel. So they're having me giving him. So I'm working with the lawyer. I'm looking at Harris. So if I wind up getting martyred, Harris and Taylor look like heroes. Flynn goes, I told you so. And Ariel already set it up. Ariel turns around, puts a post while I'm out there and going, hey, these politicians in Arizona are owned by the Sinaloa cartel. Now, who told you that? Hit that thing with Ariel now. Watch. Let's go from Michelle to Ariel, because that's what was blocked. What came clear to me was, right, Ariel was the handler of this. And he was doing the story of my life, Gulfstream Park, Epoch Times, James O'Keefe, Planet Fitness. Michael Flynn is mortified. Wow, I wonder why. See? Blackmail, hit it, Qrash. You see? They recognize, but they're playing with you. They play close to the fire to think you don't think they're part of the fire. All right. Now, Michelle, protection of Ariel. Now, I'm in there, and he's talking about Sinaloa Cartel. He's talking about Planet Fitness. I know he's talking to Mike Grendel, and so does Michelle. Michelle knows that Grendel has been talking to Flynn. And then now Grendel is saying, well, I was talking to, Mike Gill wanted a reference for Flynn. Listen, I don't ask anybody for a reference. You get what you get. You get what you see. He didn't know Flynn from an ass. And what happened was those text messages, those communications that I was going back right after on J6 and from December 18th was communications tying in with Flynn. He used that as to work with Flynn to get him out. Now, Flynn's buddy now is Patel, the director of the FBI. This plan's in motion. And what did Mike say it was worth? The other day, last week.
800 million?
800 million, a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
And those people are surrounded. And guess what? If I wind up dead, then Mike Grendel doesn't look like he's a front for the cartel. Flynn doesn't look like a hero, but in protecting the cartel, tried to steal my evidence. We got a lot on the line here.
Right.
But that's what it is. All right, hit it. So let's take a look, see where we go. With Ariel, and listen, you don't sue, you don't go after billion-dollar companies unless you have the shit down. There's Planet Fitness, there's Ariel, and there's money laundering, okay? And that's our boy that Michelle protected. Remember, Michelle Qrash says, hey, shut up, he's helping you.
Yeah, Michelle, explain that, because like we were trying to say, Ariel he's shady, but Michelle said he's helping us. Let him alone.
He's helping us because he's going after Anagos and the cartel. So he's helping us because he knows it's my evidence. But what she's not saying, leave him alone because you're going to out my handle it and we're going to take credit for it and we're blackmailing using our evidence. And I'm sending your $5,000 ass to Arizona to get smoked. Right. Leave him alone. Which is why I knew he was the target.
She flipped on me when I picked on Ariel, and I didn't know about that till later.
Right. So, on the minute.
Yeah.
That was the no-touch rule. Listen, she had an issue with Alvear. And yet we just found out, she even said, hey, listen, Ariel knows he's CIA. Well, wait a minute. That's her buddies. Now they know they're CIA. Shelby Bush saying they had a meeting with 98 of the podcasters of CIA. And I ain't arguing with any of that. You've got white hats, black hats. I hate Flynn. I like Flynn. It's bullshit. It's all one side. That's it. That's it. So, all right, hit it, Qrash. So now we've got Ariel. Now we've got Planet Fitness. And this is the connection with Grendel and sending me text messages and emails, right? Calling out, what was he saying? The drug cartels with what he knew Granite State recovery was Anagos, just like he knew AutoFair was Anagos. You know he was the front man, as Cruz was the front man for AutoFair? He was the front man for Planet Fitness. Okay, hit it, Qrash. And this Audra Toop that found, how many times did she say, I saved her life? And then all of a sudden, the feds were leveraging her. Here she is. Mike Gill tried to be murdered 3 times, and Grendel. These were my buddies. She got a deal.
I'm sorry, she's talking to Mike Grendel here, right?
Yeah. So think about this. She got a deal with the feds because by giving the tape from Howley, who was with Stone and Flynn, they turned around and the feds released her. And that's why she's not saying anything. She's part of telling another story, flipping a story. That's Claire Best, too. That's that whole, and that's Grulon's money. But see, the thing here, that's why he's saying, oh, you've got to listen to Audra. He's the same deal. He's got a deal with the feds. So does Audra. They take out Anagos. He moves in. And then they change the story, and Flynn's a hero. He mets 800 million, and Flynn's going to take a piece of it. And then he still controls the money laundering, and he gets a cartel and a child trafficker, and he's a hero. And you know what he's thinking? in 4 years, Daddy's going to be president.
I was gonna say his buddy.
You,
Yeah.
you better believe it. That's the plan. And that's how to do it. And I am what's in the way, which is why they spoke to me on that day, which is why that Pandora's box, if it's not the money, think about this, all these audits and everything. Are they not telling you it's the theft? Listen, they're going to blame it on waste. Now, did they have waste? That's how they control the corrupt. But this the theft. And if you don't get that money back, and Musk is talking about out in the trillion, then what? And with all this stuff about auditing the Senate and the Congress, listen, when you don't see Maxwell's name, you don't get Jack Smith's numbers, JFK, you don't get any of this. Epstein, we're expecting to get that. When did they give you anything?
Right.
They don't even tell you how broke we are.
You had another image. I'm just curious. You didn't talk about it you didn't tell me. You have hundreds of pages. Who was this?
Right.
This was Carissa?
That was a Carissa screenshot, but to Grundell.
Oh,
so that's
okay.
a screenshot that ties Grundell to the screenshots and the Times working with the Flynn team.
Okay.
So there's a lot more, but it ties in with evidence. So think about this. Grundell's been around me since 16.
Right.
When I put them on the sign, what did he say? Yeah, he used to put it on the sign. They were all true, but now I think he has PSAD. Right, as long as I have a short memory about you assholes. Right? Listen, I put everybody up on the signs. Yeah. So far as finding someone innocent, the best you have is complicit, scared to death, but not standing up. And listen, those simple truths can't be argued. They're fact.
That's why you're doing this, because it's facts. Okay. And it's a timeline of how this all played out. And it goes a lot more into detail than that, because you breeze through it. But I lived it with you, because I was like on the phone with you while this all was going on. I mean, these agents come to you with stuff only Michelle knows. I mean, there's things that you just can't ignore here, and it needs investigated. And I know you want it investigated, but no one, and even Scott McMahon, he says he should be saying, you know what, I want to hear this tape too. I mean, we know why he doesn't, but
no one wants it investigated because everybody knows the truth.
Right.
And the truth is, we can't take out Flynn. Flynn, whatever he has with the DOJ and the DOJ's deal with Trump, sets Flynn loose and his band of CIA
misfits.
Right, upon the American people. This guy could become president. Listen, and that's a big media. And who's backing him? Bongino? Patel?
Right.
You don't think this guy's got the juice now? I mean, this is where we're at. The DOJ would run the presidency. You know who ran Biden? Was the DOJ.
Right. Exactly.
Biden's been corrupt for 40 years. That's how they're picked. Biden was connected to Shaheen, and that was the same thing with Obama. That's why their money was in New Hampshire. And what they did was they had to try to control Trump. And would they use the courts? We say where they're going to use the courts and all of this. I am telling you, being there in Arizona may have canceled the brokered convention move.
Well, if they said it was going to be the move, it did cancel it because it didn't happen.
And President Trump came out 2 days after that and said that he saw and heard it, and that's why. But it also might have been the reason why they tried to take Trump out through the assassination. At the same time, they're threatening my life. And I was talking to Qrash at that time, and we had no money. And Michelle, she wasn't giving me money. You were helping me. The people were sending it. So I didn't have that source. So we were in a bad place at a bad time. And listen, I've been doing this a long time. My calculation was that they were going to murder me. And Michelle saying she didn't have my number was a lie, and a lie from that cab driver. And I got out of there days earlier.
She set up the cab driver.
Hmm?
She set up the cab driver, right? I mean, she got him in contact somehow with you. And she knew things. She was talking about Grendel having lunch with Juan.
Yes.
She confided in other people.
She mentioned it to Dee.
Yeah, she told Dee. And
right.
You or I didn't hear any of that. I mean, like,
no. Michelle was part of this with all of them. She knew about Planet Fitness and said to shut up because they were getting it to Grendel.
Right.
They just need me out of the picture. But listen, the easiest place for me not to conflict with all what they're saying is if I wind up dead or martyred, as what they said. I'm telling you, that was what was going to happen.
Right. Yep. So I also wanted to say you're still having another racehorse or a racing.
Yes.
But there's another part to that. One more part. Okay, I want to make sure.
Right. We had to jump into this because I see what's going on. I see what's happening with Flynn. I see these tariffs. I see what's going on. You've got to know what you're seeing. So there is a deal. And the Department of Justice is still in place. And
Right.
that same thing with Flynn. Now, the thing with the horse racing, the last piece is going to be the ESPN radio show with Roger Stein. It was the #1 radio show for horse racing across the country. That show broke the record. And they had me on 3 more times in a row each Saturday.
Wow.
But what you're going to see is what I did was I outed the money laundering network, the race fixing, and involved the politicians, involved lawyers and judges. And guess what? All of what happened there is how it works now. Who was I bumping into? The Department of Justice and the FBI. That was Behe and Bruce Dupay of the FBI. Who am I dealing with now? The DOJ, Lullen, the FBI. I'm dealing with the same monsters in 19 years. You want to know if things are corrupt? And listen, I didn't go to any of them. I knock on the door and find the bastards there.
Yeah.
And there was nobody. I made this journey to the President of the United States. How's that for not quitting and not giving up? And I'm telling you, there's monsters are on the way. And I made it. So guess what? President Trump can take them out. We can win. We turn around and snatch up their money, trash down all the money, who paid who, how'd they get their money, and you clean it up and you take back up to court. So if you don't, President Trump, it's a matter of choice. It's a decision. It's a deal. And it's immoral.
I was going to say, I mean, you'll be the first to admit if there is a plan, like I'm coming from the Q world now. We'll be the first to say, hey, that's great. But what we got, like what you say, is we got to go with what we're seeing, the actions. Okay. You can talk all you want about what you're finding and the fraud and the waste, but we need to see actions. We need to see some kind of justification or justice done.
I'd say this is their greatest accomplishment from what I've seen through this podcast world in particular. The greatest accomplishment is to have you see it with your eyeballs. You see Flynn, that Trump was commander-in-chief and he opened the border. You've seen all of that. Yet you still believe them? Right. So the measure of their power is to fool you from the obvious. So when you're seeing this, well, that was a white hat. Oh, they really blew this up. Oh, that really happened. It's a series of lies. And you're listening. You know what they have an advantage of you? They know what you want to believe.
I was going to say, they know what we want to hear.
Do you know how Michelle Moore fooled me? It's what I wanted to believe, that this was a Christian, honest woman.
Right.
And you know what? More harm has done in the name of religion than anything else.
Right.
How many prophets do we have for profit? Right? And what's Michelle said other than having an infomercial and having a profit roundtable since? Anything important?
I don't watch it. I see she doesn't have anything on.
Well, we have the Wave Watch again. We have the Gold Guy on again.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to know if you wanted to be associates, multi-level marketing of Godly Granny. And listen, I'm angry because she put me in a position to be murdered. Let's investigate. Those CIA agents that came to me was no joke. I got his name too.
Right.
No joke. What they were going to do there, and all these players. Who was Matthew? Who was Elvire? Who was Mickey Klein? Who was all the? I mean, was any of them a decent human being among all of them?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Well,
I have a question if you want.
Okay, go
Let me
ahead.
put it up. It was somebody had asked, basically, we've already talked about it, but she wanted me to go over it because she thought maybe other people might have a question too. With Trump being, his hands are tied with these people, how does he get out of this? And you've already kind of said it, but can you read that?
The art of the deal.
Yeah.
He made a deal with the DOJ. Who's in power still? DOJ. Who could Flynn into the DOJ? That was Elvire. He's not doing it. He did the opposite. He turned around and said, hey, he's a great guy. So we know that. So then, remember I told people, I go, watch movement. Forget what you hear. What if what you heard over these years have been true? Right?
Not much.
What's been true? What's been done? Still nobody's gone to jail. Still Flynn's moving and talking about the Ukraine and talking like nothing's happened. We're all supposed to forget and move on. And that's what you've done. They've lied to you. You forgot. You moved on. And they kept lying to you. How many of you would have stayed in jail? How many more of you would? Remember, the plan with Raycliffe and Flynn was having an insurrection if Trump lost. They could have prosecuted Trump and buried, I don't know, a few 100,000 of you.
Right.
How do you know how many they incriminated on their bus rides across America? I mean, a lot of militia was being involved in that, names, and they were calling out militia. I mean, doesn't that look like they put targets on people's backs? Sure did to me. The same insurrection guy, the same plan, and now good buddies with the director of the FBI. So, listen, we can still win. It's still the people. They're still afraid of you.
Right. Yeah, we the people. I mean, there's more of us than there are of them. And we just got to organize and carry, we got to follow through with it. And we got
to demand results.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about cartels. You fire one guy. Stop bringing them in. Hey, listen, start with the Senate and Congress. Audit them both and investigate them both. Meaning, we're going to audit mommy and daddy and Aunt Mare and all these people around them. We're going to do a real investigation and find out how you got rich. If you think the money that they made is what they show you, I'll bet you it's less than 1/10. If they're showing you 1 million, they've got 1 billion maybe somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
And if you're missing 36 trillion, there's a lot of billions to be put. And
right.
And that's the thing that upsets me, even with Musk. No one's telling you that that's how to do it. Just audit the laundry. You want 1 trillion? Follow the Pandora Papers in New Hampshire. There you go. You got them all. And then you get to the Senate and so forth. There's Hassan. There's Shaheen. Right. There's Pappas, who's a member of the cartel. I mean, you can't get these guys? Who do you think put them in the office but the cartels? Right? And the Department of Justice, see, if you get Shaheen, you get Bill Shaheen, you get Department of Justice, and they just committed suicide. And that's the rub. But it's also why I targeted Bill Shaheen and the DOJ. It's also why I targeted their money. It's also why they're all on a $50 million that Flynn asked for. Why? Because who do you think's using it now? Our man Flynn.
Yeah, and it frustrates me because the last 5 years, I know you don't know all this because you were doing your thing, but they've told us, they as in the talking heads, everything's done behind the scenes. We're waiting on what? I don't even know what we're waiting on anymore. I'm just frustrated. And people keep wanting to, they say I'm flipping and what, it's not that I'm flipping. I'm just seeing that the whole last 5 years just went away. It was all either lies or I don't know. And here we are. And I'm hoping I have, hope that we can turn this around. And like that
Oh, I
question,
think we can. I think people are
right?
waking up.
And I think
And
that's what
listen,
her question was like, how do we get on the right track here?
this
Um,
recession that's coming is going to alert people. And certain people not going to jail are going to alarm people. In their own bad situations, you ask questions. So
right.
I see it. And listen, someone who's traveled this road for 19 years, and I'm telling you, the first 15 years, you guys didn't have a clue. When I was saying corruption, I was like the tinfoil hat. This was incredible. So, in other words, it's a world's of difference. Doesn't get you any more courage, but it gets you that understanding now. So I'm seeing it now, and they're losing moves. This thing what happened with Trump with the courts, with the assassination. This is a normal business.
Right.
This is a normal. The president's going to jail, right? This isn't normal business. But you've got to realize what you thought was normal is not. You've got to go into this world of evil and corruption. And simply put, those lawyers and politicians got bought. It turns out that greed is the way of the world.
Yep.
It's the way, and if you got it, you won't lose it. That's why. What did they do with Musk? Musk started shaking their trees. They started blowing up his shit, and his stock started going down. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, he's on the next boat from to out of our government.
And what do you say? May, by the end of May, I guess he'll be
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
Sometimes what happens is you got to be careful when you look what you find. And
Yeah.
then you're going to have the courage to say, I'm going to commit my life to it. This is really a decision of life and death. I didn't have a decision. I don't see how I had a choice. They do.
Yeah.
How do you negotiate with an evil or to lie? How do you leave your country institutionalized by a corruption that protects cartels, that controls treatment centers and hospitals? We're dying sooner. I mean, what's good? What's
Yeah.
wholesome? What did we find out? They invaded our schools. You're damn right they did. And then they invaded your Department of Justice. You ever meet all these attorney generals and so forth in the states and states attorneys? I mean, 50%, and I don't mean be prejudiced about gay in there, but there's a coordinated effort on very one-sided liberal positions to take control of state government. I mean,
Right.
it's what I found.
Yep.
But again, you know what? We fire them. We pay the bills. And you know what? Finding out where they took your money and who they took it might piss you off to stand up and fight. And you know, it
Oh,
wouldn't take much. It wouldn't take much. It's scary how easy this is, which is why I'm still alive. They say, hey, if we kill that ass, could he tip it over to the side? You notice they don't take down my videos.
right.
Why? Because they're evidence. The idea was martyr him. Well, if he survives that, now what the hell we do? So this is where we are. So as I'm talking to you, I'm talking to them. Deal or no deal? This is me saying, go fuck yourself. Excuse me, Qrash. But 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 this is how I played from day one. You're gonna know one time. You're gonna hear the truth from beginning to end. I don't know what the rest of this shit's gonna look like, but you're gonna know. And because I don't speculate, because I have to keep it tight. That's why what you see over these years have stayed the same. How I said it, who I was in your face then, and the evidence that I showed you that I posted is held true today. All of what I warned you about, the courts are true. What they were doing with your children are true. And then the cartels taking over, hospitals and treatment centers, all true. And this insurrection with Flynn, not one piece is out of line. Yet, you ready? Any one piece is history.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, Qrash.
Well, we'll get on that other last
Yeah,
series of your series, the video for
I
that.
I have it in my head. This one was different. I had to think about, there was the timing, but I have it and I'll pop that out.
Okay.
Okay. See you,
Yeah.
Crash.